What's up, gamers? Tier lists. You know what they are. I'm going to rank Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds in tiers because I've seen a lot of takes on the internet and they're wrong. So I felt the need to make this video for validation, attention, and out of spite for anyone who would criticize my favorite worlds. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.
You want to enter the games, right?
Starting with my coldest take, this is the Monstro tier. This tier is just Monstro. Every list I could find had Monstro last. I tried to get footage for this and actually got lost because every room looks the fucking same. Not only that, but they all look gross. Geppetto's boat is cute, but it doesn't make up for the absolute pile of dog shit that is Monstro. The story is fine, not super interesting. It's nice to see Riku, but holy shit, is this awful to go through. Boss, also gross. At least it fits the aesthetic. Everyone agrees this is the weakest of all of the Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds. Next up is the trash tier, and I only put this here to show the stark difference in quality between Monstro and every world above it. Have I said enough mean shit about Monstro yet? Let's move on.
Not bad, huh?
Next up is the just okay tier. These are worlds that are, in my opinion, and the objectively correct opinion, just okay. First we have Olympus. Olympus is just 3 rooms. Normally I see this pretty high on tier lists, and I don't get why people love it so much, other than maybe Hercules nostalgia. The tournaments are a cool concept, but having to listen to the Olympus jingle every round makes me want to burn my eyes out. You don't like Olympus, you just like the boss fights, and Phil. Neverland is just okay, mostly because of the story, but it shouldn't even be called Neverland. It should be called Boat, because it's just the boat. The boss fight and story elements are great, and the saving grace of the world is being able to fly and going to Big Ben. But honestly, most of these story beats could have been hit in Traverse Town, and it would have had the same end result. There's really no benefit from going here, and it's just okay. Atlantica gets a bad rap because of the movement. While the movement is shit, I don't think it's that shit. What I do think is that shit is the room designs. It's so easy to get lost in the world. It's like Monstro, except it does 2 things better. 1, the design is a lot better. 2, there are physical markers that actually help tell you where to go. And while that is tacky, it's also helpful. The dolphin, the ship, and the shark all add to the story. Trident's castle is cool, even though it's incredibly small. So while I do think movement does hinder this world a ton, I think the design and story beats make up for it.
See ya!
So you may have noticed I've been speeding through every tier thus far because I really don't have a lot of good to say about them, and the bad is really just they're ugly, or they're short, or nothing happens. It'll be a lot more dense up from this point forward. In the mid tier is Agrabah. I feel like in every game, Agrabah is just the definition of being mid. It's kind of like when you order a burger and you say no onions and they put onions on it. You'll still eat it, but it's just kind of meh. Agrabah's design is great, but it does suffer from some same roomitis that I've mentioned in the previous worlds. In the town area, there are 3 rooms that have the same aesthetic, look pretty identical, and you couldn't name them separately. Same with the Cave of Wonders. Every room is just kind of the Cave of Wonders. There's not really any distinctive features between them. The boss fights are great in concept. You have a giant genie Jafar that you fight, a pot centipede made out of all of these smaller enemies that you fought, and then you have the giant Cave of Wonders head. They all look great, but the giant genie Jafar fight is underwhelming because you're just fighting Iago. The pot centipede is annoying because it's invulnerable from the front and back at times, and the back can just swing up and hit you. The Cave of Wonders is incredibly clunky, and openings are far and few between. But in general, I like this world. It's where the game starts to get good, in my opinion, in terms of world design. It's a good world, but it's not great. It has a lot really holding it down, which is why I consider it mid. In the actually good tier are the worlds that are just above Agrabah, but I think are pretty forgettable when compared to other top tier worlds. Halloween Town has a great aesthetic, music, and environment, but the rooms do feel cramped at times, and Boogie Manor is, in my opinion, one of the worst boss fights in the game. It's reminiscent of Crash Bandicoot, where you might spend so much time platforming and then one mistake and you're dead and sent back to the beginning on higher difficulties. The Oogie boss fight, though, is fun. I like how they went a new direction with this fight, and overall it's a success in my opinion. I just feel like part of what's holding this world back is that they did such a good job of it in Kingdom Hearts 2 with the Winterland that just going back to this world is very underwhelming. Here's another take that a lot of other lists disagree with, but 100 Acre Woods is good. I don't care what you think, it's good. The minigames are a nice break. Pooh is cute, and he has this clock. This fucking clock alone should get it into the top tier. I'll compromise and put it a little bit lower because I can see why you wouldn't like this world if you really dislike minigames. But compared to some of the minigames later in the series like Birth by Sleep and other Pooh worlds, this world is the best. Another hot take that should not be a hot take. Deep Jungle suffers because of the need to backtrack and the Vines minigame, but if you can see past those, this world is amazing. The very, very brief call forward to Hollow Bastion and Kyrie's connection to it are great. The room designs are fucking beautiful, and the boss fight made me shit my pants as a kid. All of the PS2 era kids remember listening to ooh ooh ah, not Clayton a million times because of Clayton shooting you in the fucking face from atop of an invisible lizard. And whenever I hear dun 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 dun, that shit gets my fucking dopamine levels high as hell. This world, love it. If you exclude the Vines minigames, this world is one of the best at making every room feel unique. From the hippos, to the thicket, to the camp, to the treehouse, to in the tree, it's amazing. It does a great job of having diversity in its room design while having each room look very beautiful on its own. In top tier are the worlds that are better than good, but still fall a little bit short. First is Dive to the Heart. It's a good tutorial world and barely a world, but it's so fucking pretty. We don't appreciate enough the stained glass floors here. Like, people made these. I just want to stare at them forever because they're so goddamn cool. When I was a kid, I stressed about picking a sword, staff, and shield, but always decided on the sword because, well, what kid wouldn't? Knowing what I know now, I think it's a really cool way to ensure people's experiences can be a bit different in the abilities they get and how they play the game. The sword giving more combat, shield being more defensive, and staff giving more magic abilities. The morning and noon and night dialogue was also a nice touch, though it was frustrating to pick the night option and having a harder time up to level 50 when you could reasonably beat the game in the 40s. And Darkseid being the first fight and coming out of Sora's shadow is the coolest shit. So people don't like End of the World. End of the World gets flack because of that one room where you don't really know where to go, and I never got this. Just fly around and look down and you'll see a gaping hole in the ground. Anyway, it's cool and metal as hell. Lore-wise, it's all the pieces of destroyed worlds, and that's metal as fuck. But I find it hard to believe that people who had to go through each world in the world terminus didn't think to themselves, this is the coolest shit ever, because it is. Going through every world that you've already played through and just wiping out the Heartless there while in dark gray nightmare aesthetic is perfect endgame. I love it. The random Chernobog fight at the end is great. Even though it's not really hard, it really ups the scale from all the fights you've had thus far. And then the battle at the end before the final rest is the most infuriating shit if you are not good at this game, which when I played this the first time, I was not good at this game. So it took me a long ass time to beat these guys, but man, was it fucking worth it to get to that last room before the final boss. That feeling when you get there, amazing. Destiny Islands is so homey. I think it's really the music that does it for me here, because there's nothing really to do here other than play the story and listen to the chill ass music. Oh, that and getting whooped by Riku in the race and sword fighting. The fights do teach you the basics in combat, like reflecting projectiles and looking for tells when enemies are gonna hit back. Overall, the world is short, but holy shit, is it a great start to the game, because you just feel like you're at home, nothing can go wrong, you're a fucking kid, and you have so much innocence in the world. Until, you know, everything starts falling apart. This tier is for worlds that, if you don't like, I think there's something wrong with you, and I don't like you. These worlds are so peak fiction that I will defend them to my last dying breath. Now, Wonderland is the first world, and no one ever has Wonderland this high. I need to talk about it. Every room in this world is oozing with love. The very first room is reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland, where she's falling down the rabbit hole. It's like it's lifted straight from the movie. The multiple doors opening to the next room, absolutely unnecessary and extra. The Bazaar room has you shrink down to interact with the doorknob. The Queen's Court also feels lifted from the movie, with the shrubs and roses. The forest has so much going on with the flowers that can give you items or change your size. The Mad Tea Party room has different seats you can sit in for different prizes. I didn't even mention the music. It's underrated bops in and out of battle. My favorite thing though is entering the Bazaar Room at different angles. I'll show here you can enter the room sideways, knock down the teddy bear, then go back to the normal room, and the teddy bear is still there. I love this world, and even the in-story elements are great. Exploring and collecting the evidence gives you Blizzard early to make the boss fight a little bit easier. I think it's the only world to have exploration integrated like that, rewarding you for exploring deeper into the level, and it's so underrated and overlooked for doing so. Hollow Bastion is amazing as a penultimate level. There's not a lot to say that hasn't been said before. The Rising Falls looks cool as hell. The steampunk visuals of the main castle were way ahead of their time. The library puzzle and lifts are neat little diversions from the main action. But the real thing to talk about here are the boss fights. Riku and Maleficent's second forms are two of the most iconic bosses in the game. Finally getting to beat down Riku after watching him talk shit the whole game is so satisfying. And slaying a dragon is again metal as fuck, even if you need Tinkerbell for it. Traverse Town is my number one. I've noticed it gets snuffed by Hollow Bastion, undeservingly, in many lists. Traverse Town is the perfect hub world. It introduces you to Donald and Goofy in a completely natural way, with the pair almost meeting Sora until eventually being forced to team up against the big bad. Then it works as a pivoting point to introduce you to Maleficent and how she's manipulating Riku, raising the stakes a bit higher. But the big selling point to me is the Dalmatians. Finding and reuniting these Dalmatians is the real goal of Kingdom Hearts 1. Ansem can have all the worlds, as long as I get these dogs home. Oh yeah, and you have the shops managed by the DuckTales gang and the Moogle shop. Honestly, what more could you ask for? If Destiny Islands is home, this is the downtown area where you get to hang with your friends and save some dogs. Anyway, that's my list. Please comment telling me why I'm wrong so that you can out yourself as a fake fan. And once again, like and subscribe.